Well, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the brand new release from Scale Trains. It is the EMD GP30 in HO scale. We've got the Union Pacific number 844. This is a Nevada Railroad Museum version. There's actually two Union Pacific 844s out there. You may know the more famous one, which is the steam locomotive, and this one. And they were rivals for that road number. So this one, I believe, or the Union Pacific steam one, had an X put in front of it or something to distinguish the difference while they fought it out on the road numbers. But let's take a look at what you get in the box in this DCC and Sound equipped locomotive. It's ESU LOKSound, and it is the Rivet Counter, more detailed line. Let's see what you get next. So, unboxing for the very first time, just so you're aware, that's how I usually do videos. Inside, a GP30 product manual. I believe this is a new manual here, as in they've kind of changed the format on their manuals. They used to have like a trifold. This is more of like a booklet. Lubrication, DC, CVs. These are all your sound slots and functions here. You can always pause to look at that in more detail. Headlights and all the different functions listed. CV8, resetting the decoder, basic programming notes, as they say in Seinfeld, yada yada yada. Foam, and then the locomotive itself. So, slide it out of the plastic blister packaging, as they call it. Little clamp right here, and soft plastic. There are truck immobilizers under there that you want to make sure are removed so you don't sit down your locomotive and have issues, and they just went flying. And then the locomotive itself, I'll go ahead and pull this off on camera. Some people say I make edits and it makes them wonder about fixing problems, but everything's outside the box on locomotives as I receive them. So we'll get this onto the turntable and take a look. This is going to blend in a little bit with the felt on my turntable where I'm showing you this, but we'll take a look. I'll use like a little pointing device to point out some of the features of this locomotive as we zoom in up front here. The first thing I'll mention is the gray on this locomotive. These are probably paint samples from the museum, because I know it's a lighter, more washed out gray than what the Union Pacific uses, but the museum repainted this and they are accurately portraying it with its museum version there. But on the nose you've got the little etched metal windshield wipers, sand filler hatch. There are ditch lights there, and a coupler stand that looks like it can be dropped down, drop step I should call it. It's yep, it can be dropped down, so looks like that's movable. You've got a coupler cut lever on the front. Dangling down, you've got the 4-hose multiple unit hose clusters, and they've got silver glide hands on the end there. The coupler itself is a semi-scale coupler. It's a buffer equipped with metal semi-scale Type E knuckle couplers, so you can see that there as well. Coupler cut lever is right above that, and it's all gray, so very hard to see. As a matter of fact, going down a little further you can see the silver tipped ends and how those are even molded to have the little parts, so a lot of detail just on the MU. And then you've got the deck mounted dual multiple unit MU stands. So these are receptacle stands with field loop receptacles, and also you've got the nose mounted class lights or marker lights. Up above the number boards, which are lit, is the headlight. And you got the horn prominent there on the front as well. I'm going to zoom out so we can do a little turning here. As we zoom in to look at this side, I know you can't see the cab detail that well. It's going to be really hard to see on this video, but there are cab details as well, including like separate floor detail and other details. But right here you can see the old style handbrake there. It's a ratchet style handbrake. And then the windshield wipers obviously on the cab. The cab with the two windows and the sunshade. The trucks. The dynamic brake fan housing back here. The exhaust here. Let's zoom in on the trucks a little and talk about the trucks. So these are Bloomberg B trucks with Hyatt bearing housings. You've got the elliptical springs on these trucks. And separate sanding lines as well. You can see the sanding lines coming down, tucking themselves right under the wheel, like on the real thing, help provide sand. I know my pointer is out of focus, but those are the sanding lines there. I've also got the bell low mounted right above the fuel tank here. As we go over the fuel tank itself, with all the fuel tank plumbing, and then you get the radiator fans on the back. Now these are radiator fans with 6 horizontal rib, so you can see those on each radiator fan grill. And now with the radiator, those fan grills are the actual intake, and then they're blowing out the air out the actual fans up top. On the ends, more of the same detail that we talked about earlier, the drop step or drop sill. There are the rear ditch lights. All the lights are LED on this, so you can see the handrails are pretty straight, so fit and finish out the door is pretty good. Speed recorder on the trucks here is another thing that's prominent on the truck detail. This fuel tank is a 2,600 gallon fuel tank. It has the vertical gauges and fuel fill in the sill skirt. So it's got round gauges as well. So you got emergency shutoff fuel right above that here, I believe is what that is. So lots of cool little details on this GP30, and the grille detail is really nice as well. So we're back to the nose. You can see the sand filler hatch a little more prominent, separately applied grabs on the nose. And we've done the 360 here, covering just a few features. We'll go ahead and grab the weight on this before starting it up. It's 396 grams, 14 ounces, so almost a pound. It's getting there. And so pretty beefy for such a short locomotive. Okay, let's fire this up. It's an ESU decoder. It's F8. You can see one of the walkway lights. There's also ground lighting on both sides, but let's go ahead and go through just a couple sounds on this. We'll start with one, which is bell. And then 2 is obviously horn. So I'm doing all that grade crossing sequence with just the F2 button. F3 is coupler clink. F4 is dynamic brakes, which you'll probably hear if we move it. You hear that high whine. Should be dynamic brakes. Well, it's actually more of a low whine. You hear it let off a little bit when I change the direction. Kind of got to know what dynamic brake sound is to really pay attention to it. 5's DPU lights. That's if you're doing a direct push unit that'll put class lights on this one, so I think the manual might be wrong. It changes the class lights. F6, well actually maybe they're called DPU lights on this later modern diesel. F6 is the ditch lights, which are directional. Right now we're in reverse, those are on. 7 is the gyro light, which I don't know if we actually, I think it's just a headlight on this one. Some of them might be equipped with gyro lights. F9's drive hold, which means you can actually, you know, rev the prime mover and act like you're taking slack out of the consist. 10's independent brakes. 11's radiator fan. I can do that one real quick for you. Doesn't want to, not making much noise on that. F12 is the headlight dimmer. F13 is the air dryer. F14 turns the number boards off. F15 is the UDE light, which turns off all the other lights when it's activated, and then just on and on all the way to F31. So it's got more than 28 functions, so you can do function mapping to kind of pick the ones you want. But let's move on with this review. We're going to move this at 1 speed step and check it out for smoothness of drive. That's 1 speed step. We're also going to put the AccuTrack speedometer so I'm going to reverse this here and we'll check the speed step at 1, which seems very slow, but it does seem smooth, but that's why I do these detailed videos for you guys to check for yourselves. It looks like I may not have this ready to go here. Turn to the speedometer here, see what we're moving at. It's probably going to be very close, maybe even below 1 scale mile per hour. But as you can see, slow speed step's pretty smooth. This is 1 out of 128 on my NCE Pro Cab. 0.8, so not even a mile per hour, so very, very smooth speed step. A slow speed without jerking, which is a very hard balance to strike. So we'll go a couple speed steps so you can see this thing moving a little bit. Go up to 5 here. So it's pretty, here the prime mover, ratchet up there a little bit. Number boards also have little lenses over them to make them look better. So they look nice. The lighting's pretty nice. Speaking of lighting, we'll take a look in the dark real quick and see what that looks like. Okay, so you can see the step lights there on both sides, the walkway lights, which are both on the rear over here, and they're all around. I'm going to swing the camera this way a little bit. We'll take a look at the directional lights. Maybe it's the way the old locomotives were. They weren't quite a yellow incandescent, but these are more a flat white to me. I'm not sure about the accuracy of that. I know when I see yellow, it looks more prototypically correct, but I could be wrong to me. Number boards are well done. There's no visible shine through. Here's the class lights. With each press of the F5, that changes those and eventually turns them off. You can also see a walkway light peeking through on the front. And why not do a capacitor check and turn this around so you can see the walkway light and the truck light on that side. And a few seconds later, we have power interruption, but that does tell you there's a capacitor in there that's going to help you with the dirty track. So I've got this all turned around now, taking a good look at the lights, so let's get some light back on this. It's pull test time, so let's get that all hooked up and zeroed out. We're going to do ounces. So this little locomotive's doing pretty good right now. We're at 3.6, climbing on the pull test. Just so you don't think I'm giving you the funny business, it's approaching 3.7 and kind of bounces up and out. You can finally hear the prime mover go a little faster than a couple scale miles an hour. But that's insane pulling power for such a short locomotive in plastic. You know, you're approaching 60 freight cars by itself in HO scale is what that pull test is kind of equating to roughly. You hear the brake squeal there? Okay, we'll check coupler height. Gotta obviously cut track power, or this genius entraption with all this metal on a rail is gonna cause a short. But as you can see, coupler height looks on. At least for most people's eyes, you know, would be happy with that. Well, heck, it wasn't all the way on the track. Let's just double check that one time. Oh, it's actually a little high. So coupler height's a little high on the back. I had it grounded out there. It was not on the track. The front is dead on. So the back's a little high, front's dead on. You have to make some adjustments if yours ends up like that, but the rest of the NMRA compliance is acceptable. The wheel sets are engaged. The pull test is not an MRA compliance issue, but that's pretty good. Well, that's going to wrap up the review of the Scale Trains GP30. Lots of different schemes. You can check out their website, scaletrains.com, or find your favorite Scale Trains retailer for more information or to purchase these. I've given you about all the information I can squeeze in with my busy schedule. But if you have questions down in the comments, I will try to respond to those and let you know. Usually I do a run-by. This time we're just going to pull the locomotive up and shut it down so you can hear the shutdown sequence for once, and we'll see you next time right here on the channel. Take care.